Good evening, viewers. We're going to have a very special show for you tonight. It's a collaboration show. More on that in a second. Let's get right to the introductory videos of the program itself. Give me 1 second.
So look, the Beach Brothers Show is a show where we deal with Virginia business and politics.
Well, I'm Conrad Chesviner. I'm a Hampton Roads political activist. The best ideas for community improvement happen to drive me.
I help folks that are approaching retirement and in their retirement years.
I have what I call the empowerment agenda. And that means that everything I do is focused on empowerment. You want to give a salute to Tally and Twine. It's time for you to have a high quality watch made in Virginia, made in Portsmouth, Virginia, from Tally and Twine. We want to say thanks to Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier for their great level of sponsorship. If you need a new car, you don't need to go far. Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier. And ladies, if you want your brows to say, wow, check out IamLitaWee.com. Microblading by IamLitaWee.com. I'm Seiko Varner. I do credit fixes, tax resolutions. I lend private money to real estate investors, and we do debt consolidations. If you need any of these services, contact me as provided. And now it's time to get beachy on the Beach Brothers Show.
Welcome back, and great evening, Hampton Roads viewers. Tonight's program is a special community engagement, a collaboration of the Beach Brothers Show, your chief program for Virginia business, politics, and empowerment, and the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, one of the foremost 757 political action committees specializing in increasing the representation of elected officials who aim to use positive legislation toward enhancing the Black community. Make sure to subscribe to both channels, and I implore you to look into the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, join, and help make our communities better. Now, as a co-host of the Beach Brothers Show and a Virginia Beach member of the Hampton Roads Black Caucus's Community Action Team, I like to help bring you our continued series of the most significant topics of our area in the year 2021. Tonight, our special engagement from our stream team will be an hour discussing the wish to reduce gun violence in the 7 cities. Tonight we have on Clay Marquez of Stop the Violence. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing wonderful, and yourself?
Doing pretty good. We're also going to have on the show, hopefully very soon, Mr. Barry Randall of All the People Life Church. When he tags on, I'll tag him in the show. Mr. Terrance Williams of Out of the Box Ministries. How are you, good sir?
Peace and blessings. Hey, Conrad, Clay.
Pastor
Good to see you all tonight. And we just brought on Mr. Barry. How you doing? Good. Doing well tonight? I think it might be on mute or not. We'll see, but he just tagged on. That's good. And hopefully in a minute or two, we'll bring on Mr. Dominique Vaughan of Revolutionary Visions. And all these gentlemen are good advocates of the 757 for great strength in our communities. So I want to sort of begin with Mr. Clay and then work around to all the gentlemen here. And Mr. Clay, let's start with where do you hail from in the 757, and how have you seen gun violence in your community over the years?
Well, I'm born and raised out of Norfolk, Virginia, Huntersville in the Northview area. And in the past several years, I've seen the gun violence spike up. And I come from crime myself. You know, I did 10 years in prison, and I was once one of the purveyors of injustice and out there causing a lot of havoc in my community. And I got involved with this mission because I wanted to make a change for the better, because I started seeing a lot of these youngsters, you know, just losing their life behind nothing. And over the past several years, it's like it just had a uptick, the violence did. And a lot of these families I know, a lot of these fathers I know that have lost their children. I lost a son myself 12 years ago to gun violence. And the last around before the corona came, a little bit before the corona, it seemed like it just started getting bad around about then. Me and the chief and us talked about the violence during the summertime, like around July, it started to pick up. And ever since then, it's just been out of control. So it's been a great workout here for us.
As I unmute myself, Mr. Barry, where do you hail from? And what have you seen recently and over the years regarding gun violence itself?
I'm Barry Randall, also known as the People's Pastor here out of the city of Portsmouth, Virginia, local community activist, also civil league president of one of the most heaviest infected community from gun violence, amongst other things. That is the Brighton Prentice Park section of Portsmouth. I've been fortunate enough to be born and raised there. My father was killed from gun violence in Portsmouth 41 years ago. So that's what has me very active and involved with gun violence issues. I'm just troubled because 2015, we had a spike of over 30 plus homicides in our city, all black male under the ages of 30 years old, even down to 13 years old. And at that time, we had a predominantly black city leadership, from the fire chief, the chief of police, our mayor at the time, Mr. Kenny Wright, black man, predominantly black city council. So I was a little bit puzzled at how these things are happening in our city, and our leaders aren't affected by it or somewhat concerned. And here we are some 6 years later, and right in Portsmouth, we're faced with the same thing. And again, we have a black mayor and a predominantly black city leadership. And I highlight that because say that we're not hard on the white man, and I like to use this analogy, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily right, but I don't expect a white man to be taken back when a 12-year-old black boy is killed or murdered, or 12-year-old black girl. And that's what we've been having trouble with here recently. Like, we have children being murdered, little girl. We had a 17-year-old girl who was pregnant, murdered on High Street. And my issue is, if you rewind time some 40 years ago, our successful black leaders know how hard it was for the black man years ago to even be successful. So for us to be judges and lawyers and Commonwealth attorneys and chief of police and what have you, these types of senseless acts should be unacceptable, and they should be speaking out.
Mr. Terrance, where do you hail from in the 757, and what have you seen over the recent years regarding gun violence?
I'm the founder and pastor of Out of the Box Ministries, Virginia Beach. Started the ministry back in 2012, but I've also been serving the city for 21 plus years now. I was 18 years working for the city of Virginia Beach as an employee for the public utilities department. Our ministry, we've been working closely with the first precinct of the Virginia Beach Police Department in the Princess Anne Plaza area. And if anyone knows about Princess Anne Plaza, it was one of the most drug-infested, high crime areas in Virginia Beach. And that's where we built our church at. I wanted to be right there where we would be able to help people and serve people in a community like that. And we worked very close with the first precinct police department. And what our job was to bridge a gap between the citizens and the police department. During that time, there was no trust with the police department. It was a lot of drugs were on the rise. Crime was on the rise. And what we did in the community, we actually started having community events. Everything was free, cookouts, things of that nature, and bringing the community out. And along with that, we had the police department participating with that. And so we started to bridge the gap between the citizens and the police, and the crime actually started going down. There's been 2 officers that has been promoted to detective since our work. I've gotten many accolades from the city and also from the sheriff department and the police department for our work in Virginia Beach. However, Virginia Beach, until recently, didn't have the situations that we have in Norfolk, and Portsmouth, and Newport News. And what I'm talking about is recently with the Donovan Lynch and DeShayla Harris killings down at the oceanfront.
I think I might be able to bring that into a question very shortly, but before I get to that, I want to move on to the phenomenon itself. Is it mainly done seemingly by our younger generations? And if so, why might that be? And let's start back around with Mr. Pastor T.
Well, we sort of point the finger at the youth, because right now, what you're seeing on the news, you're seeing the numbers getting lower and lower as far as ages. Just a few weeks ago, there was a 6-year-old that was recently shot in Norfolk by a 16-year-old, I believe. This past week, we've had two 15-year-olds who've gotten killed. But we can't place the blame on our young people, because we are the parents and the teachers of the children. And we failed to teach them certain things in the household. The child's first classroom is in the home. And so I don't like to point the finger at them, although they are the ones that are doing the shooting and being killed at this time. But it had to come from somewhere. When you have a movie, there's a movie called Menace to Society, and it has the Roman numeral 2, meaning that there had to be a menace 1 prior to that. And so we can't continue to point our fingers at our young people. We have to look in the mirror and see what we're failing to do as parents and teachers, starting in the household, starting in the community, in the schools and the churches.
Pastor Randall, what would be your thoughts on whether or not this is seen as too young of a phenomenon?
Just to echo Pastor T, it is so true. I mean, the reality is children are like sponges. They absorb what they see, those that they idolize. And the reality is the issues are not with the young people. The issues are with the old heads that are on the block. And like I tell the police officers and the chief of police here in Portsmouth, until you guys are able, I tell the pastors, until you guys are able to want to go out and confront the gang leaders, because right here in Portsmouth, we have gang leaders. We have a guy, I won't mention by name, but we have a guy, he comes, go out to a place called Dale's Home and give the young boys guns, 12 and 13-year-old, give them guns. You know why? Because the things that he want done, he's playing on these young people's minds. He want a job done. He wants somebody shot. He wants somebody robbed. Guess what? If he come to another adult with common sense and a good mind frame, you know, right, wrong, and different, he got to get that person $500, $1,000, $5,000. But guess what? He can go to this impressionable 12-year-old who just trying to get a new pair of tennis shoes and say, hey man, I'll buy you some shoes. I need you to go stick up this game over there. I need you to go in this person's house. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And that's what the issue comes back to. And that goes back to the lack of recreation, because we all know that poverty and illiteracy breeds crime. So if the schools, the churches, and the city government, and when I say city government, because people say, well, you know, the government, what you want them to do? I want them to do the same thing they do when it's election time. When it's election time, we see them in the hood. They don't have a problem on your door asking for your vote. We need to hold these people accountable, black and white. If you can come in the hood for election time, we need to see you in the hood helping write rites of passages, helping implement programs. And I got something better for you. If they don't want to get their hands dirty, you have guys like myself, guys like my guest fellow panelists here that already have programs in place. Put some funding behind it. Put some money behind it. Right here in the city of Portsmouth, we have over $100,000 every year that they can use to help different communities. And we're out here giving money to plant gardens and to do studies. We talk about crime in our community. They say, oh, Reverend Randall, don't worry, we're going to spend $150,000 to do a poverty study. Okay, $150,000, give me the $150,000. I can feed the poverty community for at least 6 months. But my point is, if it has to take some boots to the ground and have to have some people. And I'm not saying that the generation haven't changed and things aren't different and these guys are disrespectful and Pastor Terrance go out there, they may rise up on him. But guess what? Somebody has to risk their life in order that somebody gets saved. That's what has happened throughout the course of history, back to Jesus Christ, back to Malcolm X, back to Martin Luther King Jr. In order for freedom to come, there's a price to be paid. We have to be willing to step up, to go out here and confront the OGs, as they call them, and let them know what you're doing to our young people is wrong. You're selling poison to your aunts. You're selling poison to somebody's grandmother. You're selling poison to your sisters. And at the end of the day, we can look at the white man and say what the white man has done, but what are you doing to your own people in your own community?
Mr. Marquez, do you echo very similar thoughts as to how it might not necessarily be strictly a youth problem?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of these gentlemen have said. The so-called OGs that out there, they have our children breaking in people's houses, stealing their dope, bringing it back to them, have them breaking in people's houses, stealing guns. They're arming them with firearms. They got them stealing cars. They just have them doing a whole lot of things. When I go through the community and I talk to a lot of these young guys, when they clicked up with their crew, they want to be bad. But when I separate them and talk to them, it's like a totally different person. You know, it's like somebody that just want to be talked to. They just want to be loved. It was one of them in a situation. His mother told me, well, a house got shot uptown. A bullet went through the door and it shot a 14-year-old in his back and a bullet enlarged in his stomach. So his mother asked me, could I go around there and talk to her son? Because he had an ankle bracelet on already. He wouldn't, when I knocked on the door, he would not open the door. About 3 days later, I happened to see him walking down the street. I had never seen this guy before, but he was a splitting image of his mother. So as soon as I seen him, I asked him, is your name such and such? And he said, yes, how you know? I said, because your mother told me to come talk to you. You that bad one that she was talking about. Then he told me, I was out there talking about 10 or 12 kids. And he said, man, I don't care that what you talking about, man. And he had a gun on him then. He said, I'm carrying my gun around. He was with two young ladies. So he was trying to show off in front of them. So I called him by himself. I talked to him for about 45 minutes. Right now, after we talked and stuff, his tears started coming out his eyes because he won't with his crew. And right now today, he's going to Job Corps. He got his driver's license. He got his GED, and he's doing well. So a lot of these children will change. You know, they always say that they won't change. They will change. And like I said, over the past 8 months, I had 5 of them come to me and they turned over their guns and I turned them over to the Norfolk Police Department. That's 5 less weapons on the street that could have killed our children. And just to echo what these gentlemen were saying, the children, you know, it's not their fault. Like myself, when I went to prison, we dropped the ball on these young guys. You know, we left them out here to fend for themselves. They just out here on the corner, and then they got these other youngsters out here that's not telling them anything positive. You know, we leave our women in the house. You know, we impregnate them, they have the children, and then we leave them. We're not there as a father in the household to try to raise them and rear these kids. You know, so we are partially the responsibility. It's easy for us afterwards to say, oh, these kids doing this, these kids doing that. But we need to take back the community. We need to go out there and we need to get more involved.
I want to circle back to what was touched on by Pastor T earlier regarding how Virginia Beach has sort of entered into this a little bit due to instances in 2021. And Virginia Beach just put into place a new system. It's called Shot Spotter. It detects with precision where a shooting took place, even the caliber of the weapon that was used. As we know, Virginia Beach has had multiple oceanfront and city shootings this year, and the one that was cited earlier was the one that initiated wanting to put money into this system. Newport News already has this tech. What are your thoughts on technology like this in relation to how it might play into reducing violence, perhaps? And we'll start with Mr. Marquez again.
I actually just heard about this technology. I haven't read on it or studied on it, but when I just heard about it, it could be good. It's something that maybe Virginia Beach should have been done. You know, with the body camera situation, as Pastor T, we've been down to Virginia Beach and we have done the demonstrations down there and so forth. And but I think that it could be useful. I know that they follow us all around with drones. They spend money on that, but they will not spend money on body cameras. but they was spend millions of dollars to follow us around Virginia Beach, but at the same time, I think that it could be possible. I can't really speak to it as much because I'm just starting. I just heard about it about day before yesterday.
Mr. Pastor Randall, what would be your opinion on, say, if this was something Portsmouth had missed today?
I'm gonna be honest with you. That is not even my lane in reference to something of great importance to me. That is more so to keep the police on a level playing field, and again, it is all well and good, but that's not gonna stop the crime that we have. And let me be clear, you can't police yourself out of crime. It don't matter, because people love to use the excuse, well, we understaffed, we don't have enough police. No, listen, if you look at every millionaire, every developer, every business person, every city leader, and a lot of our well-to-do pastors, look at the neighborhoods they live in. They don't tolerate cars being parked out there with wrong tags. They don't allow cars being parked out there with expired stickers. They don't allow yards being unmaintained, none of those type of things. And you know why? Because they take pride in their community. So they're not going to allow no one to sell liquor and alcohol to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're not going to allow nobody to have a dice game and all that type of stuff. So therefore, if we look at what's really happening in our community, is because we choose not to police our own community, because we want to have the mentality that we're not snitches, that we're minding our own business. But one thing I found out about people of all race, color, and creed is that everyone wants you to tell something when something happens to them. So therefore, when I grew up as a little boy, I couldn't sneak people in my house. You know why? Because my neighbors would tell my mama. My mother loved to go to bingo. So at 6 o'clock every day, she put me and my sisters down and let us know not to open the door, not to do this, not to do that. And she'd be back at 9:30 on the dot. And for those 3.5 hours, guess what? We were children just like everybody else. So there were times where we went outside. There were times we did stuff. But my neighbors told on me, and I got disciplined about it. But in this generation, we don't have that type of things going on. So therefore, the dice game ain't being reported until somebody gets shot. And then you find out down the road, oh, that person got killed because they came out of the bootlegger house. Well, first of all, how is it that this person is selling bootleg? How is this person selling alcohol and food to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and nobody is saying anything? And I know that really wasn't directly to the question that you asked, but my point that I'm making, brother, is that video technology, that's just for the police to make sure that they're going by the book when they're arresting people and that they're not violating people's rights. But what I'm saying is that technology, spending $20 million is not going to decrease the crime that's happening in our communities. So I would rather them, as opposed to spending $20 million and $10 million on technology, put that money back into programs. We have to educate our people, give them some self-worth, and let them know who they are so that they don't continue to disable their brothers and sisters. Because at the end of the day, that's who you're doing. There's 2 words. I know y'all familiar with this. There's 2 words inside that one word: bro and other. That is your other brother. So when you're hurting him, you're hurting your other self.
Pastor T, as you know, this is a new thing in Virginia Beach that they wanted to be seen doing, I guess. The city council actually invested, if I remember, about $1.87 million into this system, and they took it from CARES Act funding. Do you think it's actually going to help out with what they even intended to do for the oceanfront? Or as Mr. Berry just said, that's just something that they want to empower themselves with?
Comrade, you said the key word, oceanfront. They chased that green dollar. Why set it up down at the oceanfront? Because that's their moneymaker. That's where they want to protect. You got neighborhoods, Lake Edwards, you got the Plaza, you got Atlantis, you got Green Run. All those areas, those so-called target areas, is where the money should go. And just like Pastor said, the money that they spent, if they spent 1.8 million, just think what we could do with that money to help these young people that are getting in the trouble and the situations that they're getting in. They're flooding money into the oceanfront because that's their money maker. just last week, Virginia Beach was named one of the safest cities, no, the safest city, largest city in America.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel safe. We don't feel safe. Brother Clay and I, we go down to the ocean front to do marches and protests, and we're not feeling safe, even when the police are right there with us, supposedly to protect and serve. And so the money that, if they spent 1.8 million for this technology, let's just like America today found a vaccine for this pandemic. Well, we've been under a pandemic for 400 years in America, and the pandemic is getting worse and worse. So if you can come up with a vaccine to cure this illness, let's come up, the government, like Pastor said, let the government come up with the solution to the problems that has been plaguing our communities for years. So I don't agree with the 1.8 million invested into the oceanfront. The oceanfront is fine. The oceanfront businesses are fine. They make more money off of those who don't live in Virginia Beach than the citizens themselves. So the oceanfront is okay. Invest that money in the communities to help us so that we can educate, so that we can do the things that we need to do to have our young people be better citizens, so that they can respect themselves, love themselves, and so we can get out of this 400-year-old pandemic.
Pastor Randall, would you like to follow up?
Yes, something that Pastor T said, and I think is very important. And if we can just get this in the mind of our beautiful brothers and sisters, and you guys may hear me say black a lot, and that's because dealing in my community, that's where the crime is. So I'm not excluding no other race. But if we can get this into the minds of our beautiful brothers and sisters, something he said is so important. Education. And let me tell you guys why. The reason why, I'm going to tell you a secret that they don't want us to know about. The reason why they spend $1.8 million on that technology, because their friends own the company of that technology. The reason why they spend millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars on poverty studies, because guess who owns the company that's going to do the study? Their friends. See, if we put this into the minds of, when I go on the streets, I'm looking at these guys' faces and I'm letting them know that they playing you. They need you to shoot somebody. They need you to kill somebody. They need you to flood the street with poison, because they for the most part are bail bondsmen. They for the most part are big time lawyers. They for the most part are judges. So we're feeding a cycle. So then when Pastor Terrance and Clayton and Dominique and everybody else go running downtown and letting these folk know about the shooting and the murders and what have, they say, okay, we hear y'all. Okay, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to spend $1.8 million and we're going to get this technology. And we're going to take $300,000 and we're going to do a study. And guess who that money go to? Their friends. Because it'll be so much cheaper to fund the program, the Boys and Girls Club, the Boy Scouts. Because I want to be fair, it's so many organizations that they could. You know how many people? You know what you could do, Pastor Terrance, with $10,000. You know, people like to preach the scripture about what Jesus did with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. I tell them, give me 500, and I can show Jesus up. I ain't better, but I can work up. I can feed 10,000.
Yes,
so they know this, and they're not gonna do this, because if they direct the funds to us, we gonna eradicate the problem, because we're gonna look these boys and girls in their face and remind them of who they are and tell them the struggles of their mothers and their grandmothers and their forefathers and what they went through just to get a book in their hand, and how you had to, if you was a person of color, you had to sit outside the classroom window outside just to hear what the teacher was teaching, because you was 3/4 of a human being. You weren't even worthy enough. So if we start educating their mind and letting them know, get you a business. Let me show you how to get an LLC. Let me show you how to get that lemonade stand right. Let me show you how to get that lawnmower, how you can become a millionaire with a gas can and a lawnmower. And especially whether we like Trump or not, especially what happened and how he allowed so many people to prosper and come up through this pandemic. Our people, if they're educated about crime, I'm telling you guys, we could stop this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can I just add,
Yeah.
comrade?
Good.
And to the point that they just made, when we was at this city council meeting a couple of days ago in Norfolk, Councilman Paul Reddick made the same pretty much statement about all of that money, how the recreation centers are closed right now. All the libraries are closed. And he was saying how the money is being expedited to more affluent neighborhoods such as Ghent, such as Larchmont. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars just on streets and sidewalks. And they're starving the Black community. You know, there is no money. Like, for example, they say there's grants out there for the civic leagues to try to get money, like $2,500 grants. But they say that they're not even giving you that much. They're giving you a couple $100s to plant grass, as the pastor said, to plant seeds and stuff. That's no money for a civic league to try to uplift the community, you know, to do what they can out there. And as far as Virginia Beach, what you were just talking about, all of that is just for show. As Pastor T said, for the tourists to come down, they're trying, this is their money-making season. Mm-hmm. The same day that Brother Lynch was shot down the oceanfront, I was down there that night. I had a room down there with my daughter down there that night. And that was the first warm day. And after that, they've been down Virginia Beach. They had the audacity now to turn the police station to that box. You know, it's like a slap in the face. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just very counterproductive. And as the pastor said, we need to be educated. We need to learn about the programs. We need to learn about the money, the budgets, a $1.5 billion budget that Norfolk has. We're getting not now dime of it. Out Huntersville, where I grew up at, in the evening time, soon as it started to get dark, there are no lights out in the park. So the children go back and hang on the corner when they could be staying out there an extra hour and a half or two, you know, playing basketball or getting a little more recreation. There's no street lights out there. And these are things that, you know, we don't know about, we're not knowledgeable about, or we don't stand up and fight about. You know, we're not in the civic league, we're not involved. And I think that this is a great first step, because me, myself, coming from the street, these are things or matters that didn't really concern me because I was in my own lane. I always did what I could do for the community, but I wasn't vested into the community as far as like the street lights and the streets and the potholes and things of that nature that affects everybody in the community. And I think that this is a great first step for me as well, that I'm learning. You know, each and every, I learned a lot from these brothers right now, just listening to them. You know, I'm a work in progress. And I just, like to thank y'all for y'all insight as well, because I'm learning from everybody on this show and on this panel. And I think this is a great panel.
Thank you very much for that. By the way, this reminds me, we're sort of at the halfway point of today's special engagement show. It's a combination of the Beach Brothers Show and the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. We're using our stream team format to talk about important issues in the community. And the past few minutes, we've actually just got joined by another special guest, Mr. Dominique Vaughan. So can you hear me, good sir? I think we have him on for audio at least. There we are, good sir. Jump back on.
Tell him to unmute himself.
I don't think he's muted. I see him from here that the audio is good, but he bounced off the video. Mr. Dominique, if you can hear me, I want to give you a little bit of the show access here to talk about where you're from in Hampton Roads and what you might have seen regarding some gun violence around here. And actually, it just dropped. All right, when he hops back on, I'll throw it to Mr. I could sort of circle back because we touched into some of the threads of my next question already. I still want to give it another shot. Because this issue is seemingly more notable in 2021, not to say it wasn't bad before. Initially, we wonder if crime issues like this require certain policing responses. So in your respective opinions, which isn't, we're not here deliberately like to bash the police or something, but where might solutions easily be found? And is it supposed to be more community action, or is it policing action? And we'll start with Mr. Clayton.
As the pastor said earlier, we can't police ourselves out of this situation. It's going to take community. You know, as we know, as I done found out that we are the go-between, you know, that there's a lack of trust in the community with the police department as far as what's been going on, you know, with George Floyd and many others before that. The community do not trust the police. You see little children now, they won't even go to the police. It was something I saw on YouTube or Facebook or something up there when the little boy was hiding behind the car when he seen the police car coming. He was afraid of the police. And it's no more officer friendly. And I believe that, like right now, the street activists and the community and the pastors and the churches, that we are the ones that need to get involved. Right after the George Floyd situation, I remember when the chief of police of Norfolk, we was down Waterside, and you had pastors that was from mega churches that was down there, and everybody was crying, and everybody was holding hands and hugging and you know, and so forth. And I was just thinking to myself, like day before yesterday, where is that love and where is that passion at right now with our young kids out here dying? You know, because it's, you know, and these are children that we do know, and we still won't go out there and do nothing about it. You know, like the old saying that we should be our brother's keeper. You know, the same way as the pastor said that the neighbors told his parents when him and his sister left out of the house. And I think that that's what we need to get back to doing, that we got to watch out for our own children. If I see a child out in the street or doing something he's not supposed to be doing out late, I should make it my business to go talk to that child and send them home. But right now, it'll come to a point that even if you approach a child, you know, the parents are upset with you and so forth. You know, you did this to my child. You can't even say nothing bad to a child without the parents want to fight you or pull a gun on you themselves. And I think that it starts with a conversation that we got to go back old school, you know, and start talking to one another, start loving one another, you know, and treating each other right. You know, that want for your brother what you want for yourself. And I think that when we go back to community, because community is important. And as one of the panelists, the pastor said earlier, that once it affects us, then we want to get involved. Until then, it really doesn't matter until it knocks on our door. So I think that community first, and then the police. I think that we have to take care of our own. We got to take care of our own communities. And I think us as men, we got to go back in the communities and we got to take the community back. And we got to go out and we got to hit the community hard, and then we need to knock on doors and we need to talk to the people that's out there. For one example, then I ain't gonna hold it too long. I talked to a gentleman maybe about 2 months ago. He just paid off a 30-year mortgage on his house. He just retired. And he told me that he can't even enjoy his retirement or his home, you know, because the guys are shooting dice in front of his house. He said when he walked to his front door, it's like he got to ask them, could they move for him to get in, you know, inside of his own house? You know, that he feel like a hostage in his own community, and his house is paid for free and clear. These are the betterment years of his life that he should be enjoying themselves. And he was like, a lack of a better word, he just want to move and get out of there, you know? And it was just like how the kids act toward him, you know? So we got to talk to these youngsters and just try to take the community back.
Let's move it to Portsmouth's People's Pastor. In your view of the community versus policing, where is the mix? Where's the lie there?
If you don't mind, sir, let me yield to Mr. Dominique Vaughan, because I don't want, you know, I want to give him the same respect and time that we all have. So
absolutely,
I'll come back if we have time, but I want to hear from him.
Yes, sir. Mr. Dominique,
yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what part of the 757 you are from, and what you might have seen over the past few years regarding gun violence in your community.
Okay, so originally I'm from Norfolk, but I've been residing in Chesapeake, Virginia, Holly Cove area for a little minute. I have a nonprofit organization called Revolutionary Visions, and one of our main focal points is gun violence and prevention plans. And what we do is we advocate people to put gloves up and put the guns down, so we throw boxing events. So a lot of things I have seen with gun violence all comes down to the narrative y'all was at earlier, not enough funds in that neighborhood. You feel what I'm saying? If you got enough funds in the neighborhood, it wouldn't even be a reason why people are doing what they're doing, because the love of money is the root for all evil, and that's what a lot of things start with. So, with us not having enough community outreach, I don't know exactly who said it, but they said one person was touching on, if they try to correct someone's child, they would get upset. And me and my focal point within my community is it take a village to raise the children, and sadly we don't have enough villagers engaging with them children. So what we have done in my community is moving forward is we all becoming back to that village type environment where we all can be able to correct a child if they doing wrong, or go back to their parents and let them know exactly what they out here doing in the streets. And there's not enough people, what I should say, role models, or enough elder people that's doing that, because the kids that's doing all the shooting and killing ain't nobody older than 25, so they don't have any more real role models. In this day and age, the only person to play where you can be a role model is if you got a lot of money. You feel what I'm saying? But there's no money, no positive money inside the community where a person can have any type of outreach and teach these kids how to build their credit, how to teach these kids how to be able to take out business loans and methods like that. So we are lacking a lot of things.
What might be your view regarding how much strength the community needs versus policing regarding violence itself?
I mean, my experience, my past experience, and I know Clay is real heavy in the city of Norfolk with the police department there. What's going on with you, Clay, man? I haven't heard from you in a minute.
Hey, what's going on, Dominique?
My experience is that trust would never be equal. We can be willing to work with the law enforcement officers as community leaders, but they don't look at us as such. And what they do want us to do is bring them things that's happening inside the neighborhood, which can tarnish things that's happening inside the neighborhood and tarnish your accountability and your relatability with people things. So
now,
I feel like it is with my experience with the Chesapeake Police Department, you know, it's different. Every department is different. You know, I feel like when you do have officers that's a part of your community, then the community is not only so much better, but the energy be flowing a lot more fluently, and it keep a lot of negativity people that come in. We had a block party on in 2019, May the 30th, and we had over I say about 600, 800 people out here. And because we didn't have any type of rapport and relationship with the police officers, when they came out here and seen everything that was going on as far as with the activities, they didn't want to stay in and engage with the community, because a lot of them were Caucasians and they don't feel comfortable amongst a neighborhood full of people that they wasn't raised around. So we need to change that narrative right there, because that could have prevented the mass shooting that ended up having 10 people shot and one slain. You feel what I'm saying? So my perspective on the police in the community may be different from others, because I have literally took the steps. You know, the Chesapeake Police Department have donated lawnmowers for my lawn care service with the organization for the children and youth to be able to have them enrolled in some type of summer program. You know, when the engagement is there, it can work, but it have to be on the same page.
And if I recall, you also mentioned that there is a sort of like a lack of some important community opportunities, like I think you've even mentioned a rec center in the past in that specific area. And that could be the type of government intervention that could be positive if it's done in specific investments that are correct.
Absolutely.
Do you think that might help out if they brought a rec center in that area?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, when you have neighborhoods that have rec centers, and when those rec centers are being applied not only for little kids, but teaching young teenagers and young adults how to move forward with credits and creating a credit line, it's a whole different change of perspective on outlook, because they know once they get obtain a certain age, they can assess these things. But we don't have any neighborhoods nor rec centers doing these things, and we're sadly failing these kids because we're not in a position to be able to, talk to them and tell them things that have changed our lives, when it comes to monetary things, and that's the only thing that they care about right now. You feel what I'm saying?
Exactly. All right. Trying to remember what questions I might have asked already, because I've been deleting my questions as I've been finishing them up. So I wanted to catch up if you can. Pastor Randall, what was your opinion overall regarding the intricate balance, if you will, of policing and community, specifically addressing this?
Well, just like some of the points that Dominique touched on was so profound. The reality is this: there's bad people in all professions. There's bad priests, there's bad pastors, there's bad teachers, bad people in all professions. And one of the things that you guys will always hear from me a lot is I may come across as harder on our own people, and that's because I know the struggle. I was raised off of mayonnaise sandwiches. I don't say that because it sounds good. It's just a fact. There were days where, you know, in the summertime of every year, all 14 of my cousins and us, we were dropped off at my grandparents' house. And there were days where, you know, people today may call it child abuse, but there were days where there was just not enough food. And she would, and one of the things, and it has made me who I am today, there was never no such thing as bad bread. Because she would tell you, you put it in the toaster and that bread is good. So right. The reality is that's how we were raised. And I say all that to say this: it goes back to us. You know, if we stop disrespecting the police, the office of police, we're not talking about the bad police officers, because there's a difference between the officers and the office. Just like I tell people all the time, God called offices. He didn't call Barry Randall to be a, you know, as to say he called pastors. Barry Randall just happened to be one he chose to be a pastor. So when we understand the profession and respect the profession, in other words, we have to stop with the calling the police officers pigs and F9 and F12 and all these type of things. So therefore, what happens is we're putting the wrong seeds in our black brothers and sisters' head that is wrong to be a police officer. So guess what? When they come up, they, you know, because everybody's not college material. Everybody don't want to do college. I was out of school for 22 years and just went back and got my associate's degree. Okay. So the reality is everybody's not college material. So if we let our young people know, do you not know you could be a police officer starting out at almost $40,000? Norfolk is even better. Norfolk starting you off at 50 grand a year. No college background or anything. But the problem is, our young people think that it's not cool to be a police officer. And as Dominique said, the white police officers that didn't grow up like we grew up, that don't understand our culture, that don't understand that we've been through so much, that our mean mugging you ain't necessarily because we don't like you, it's just that we don't know you. So when you walk past a group of white guys, they may say, hey. When you walk past a group of black guys, they may say, you know, and that's all you might get, or you may not even get that. So therefore, when police officers come, because I hear it all the time, oh, they wouldn't have shot that white person, but they're not fearful. No, it's not right, but they're not fearful. They don't know us. They don't know our struggle. They don't know what we've been through. So therefore, if we don't change that narrative, because I tell them all the time in Portsmouth, if we have more people that grew up in Swanson Home, Dale's Home, Prentice Park, Outer Barber, Washington Park, Truxton, if we had people that grew up in this neighborhood, it would be no different than when a white police officer get called for a domestic violence issue and the police officer come there, oh, that's just Bob fighting with his wife, Joanne. All right, Bob, calm down. Go walk it off, Bob. And that's de-escalated. But guess what? When they come to our community and they see Mike fighting with Lisa, they automatic guns drawn. They automatic in defense mode because they don't know him. But if Barry Randall grew up and became a police officer, and I grew up with Pookie, and I grew up with Mike, and I grew up with JoJo, guess what? When I come, I ain't mad, I ain't scared of nobody. Look, bro, you know you can't be acting like this. Come on, man, walk it off. So at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility on educating our children and letting them know that it's okay to be a police officer, because if we have more black and brown people to police their own community, half the issues we have with the police wouldn't even happen.
Let me unmute myself. Pastor T, if I remember, I've been out to Out of the Box Ministries myself. and that was one of the cookouts. And there were officers there that too. Is that part of something that helps reduce violence? Is a constant intermingling and actually being friendly in the community?
We had to take steps and progressive steps to get to that point. When we first started our ministry in the Plaza area, it was like the other two panelists were saying, didn't trust the police. And so when the very first event that we had, there was about 6 or 7 police cars out, and the people didn't come out. I mean, it was very sporadic. And I told them, I said, the next event that we have, I don't want you guys here. I said, for the simple fact, they got to get to know you before they come out and trust you. And so we took steps. I think by the time you were there, we were having the first precinct. Every event that we had, they brought all the drinks, all the juices, the sodas, the waters, the ice. And like I said, at the beginning, we couldn't do that because they didn't trust the police. And what happened was I used to go door to door, and I took one police officer with me. I go door to door to pray in the neighborhood. And I said, well, this is Officer so-and-so. And it just so happened, just like Pastor was saying, he was a white officer, but he grew up in the hood. So he was a wrestler and a football player. So a lot of people in the area knew him. So they were able to gravitate to him because he was a football player and because he went to the school, and they noticed that they seen him around. And so he was my point of contact. Just spoke to him yesterday, matter of fact. He's just been promoted to detective, but he was able to come door to door with me. And some of the people, houses that we went to, he went to school with. And so that kind of eased the minds of the others. And then we would go to the basketball court, and he would play basketball with them. And that tripped out a lot of the younger ones, because they were like, wow, he's out here playing basketball with them. So he began to show how officers can be part of the community if they want to. Now, the flip side of that is that you have a lot, like Pastor was saying, that don't understand being raised in that type of environment. And so they come with their hands on their gun, just getting the call, not even knowing the situation, and already ready to pull the trigger. And so that goes back to the education. There has to be not only an education, not only do we have to continue to educate our own, but the police, they only go through like a 9 or 10 week training period. They have to be educated on dealing with the mindset of the people in our community. And so that goes back to being able to hire Black and brown people who are want to be police officers. That way, like Pastor was saying, they can go into the communities and know the people that live in that community, and it can create a much better environment.
Mr. Dominique, I would like to start off with yourself for the next question. It sort of hinges around the idea of this 2021 being a statewide election year. And what would you sort of like to see beyond this just year policy-wise for new politicians you get on? I still see you on the stream. I'd like you to. We'll throw it to him when he gets back on the video. Let's start with Mr. Clayton. This is an election year, so we're going to hear them talk about a lot of stuff regarding the community, but what do you personally want to see, regardless of who the politician is party-wise, from the state down to help the communities?
Well, I personally want to see them come out in the community, but I mean, it's always seemed like it's like business as usual. When we had the city council meeting the other day, I went up there. I actually was going to go up there and I was going to sign up to go engage, but I wound up leaving and going to another community event because I said, it's just the same old talk. It's the same. Nothing has changed. We go up there, they're going to say what they're going to say, and nothing is going to change every time. When the politician was just running a few months ago, last month, they didn't win. They was in the community, all the events. I'm not going to call no name. And then after that, I didn't hear nothing back from them. I call, they don't pick up the phone. It's the same old thing. When it's time for them to get our vote, they in the community, they at all the events because they know that that's where the people at. They at events where someone has lost their life. They want to show up, you know what I mean, to be on the news and stuff and let people see them. It's the same old thing, you know, and we're going to hard press them. We're going to question them. We're going to make sure that the certain issues that we need addressed, that they're going to speak about it and talk about it. You know, or we're going to get them up out of there. We're going to change the faces and get new people in there. And I just want to ask, backtrack for a second. Somebody had mentioned earlier, I believe it was you, Conrad, about the activists being paid. And I think that, you know, the majority of the things that we do ourselves, you know, I pay for my own stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's hard. And we know we do events, we pay for the food and you know, things of that nature, that we take care of our own community. And the money that the city messes up, like, for example, up Broad Park, they spent $3 million they gave to an asphalt company to pave a street. A year later, they tore the street back up because they forgot to put in the infrastructure. They forgot to run sewage in it. So then they paid another $3 million to pay the street again. That's wasteful spending. That's the money that could have been allocated in our community that we could have used, or at least gave some street organization or activists and paid them to go out there, because I think a lot of more people, as Dominique was mentioned earlier, that a lot of people, you know, they need money, you know, and I think a lot of them will go out there and work, you know, and try to talk to others, because a lot of people don't want to get involved. You know, they know who's out there. We know who the shooters are. And I think a lot of guys will go out there, they will talk, they will work a little harder, you know, and you got some that just do it out of the passion. I do it out of the passion because I care for my people. But I think it would motivate a lot of others that are sitting on the sidelines to go out there and work as well. And I think that if they're going to waste money, $6 million on asphalt, that they could pay some of these activists to go out here and work hard in these streets.
Pastor T, I would like to move it on to you on the same topic. Without mentioning any specific politicians or specific parties, what would be things you would want people who win to do from the state down to help our communities?
Well, one of the things that I want Virginia Beach to do is finally get you on that city council, because we need people like-minded such as yourself. We need to get a lot of the dinosaurs up out of there. And so that's one of the first things that Virginia Beach needs to do, is get Conrad on the city council. We only have about 2 or 3 that actually go out in the community and care. Clay was talking about compassion earlier. There's no compassion. I go to the city council meetings. You don't hear compassion. You don't hear about caring. You know, when we were going through the Donovan Lynch situation, it took the mayor to be turned away from the funeral to actually talk to that family. When Donovan Lynch was killed, the first thing the mayor should have done was picked up that phone and sent his condolences and said, we're going to work on trying to find out what happened. He didn't say anything, and then tried to show up to the funeral, and the family rejected him from coming to the funeral. You have to have people that have compassion on city council. This year, we're not going to allow them to come out and do their candidate like old business, like Clay was saying, and coming out and kiss the baby. And that's the only time we see them. We're not accepting that this time. I've been to the city council meeting and told the mayor directly myself that if you don't get on it, we're getting ready to get you up out of here. And the rest of them that's been there far too long, who haven't done anything for the city of Virginia Beach except for that money-making machine down at the ocean front. It's time for a change, and the change is going to begin with us. And we're going to get you up in there, Conrad. Maybe we have to put you in a different district or something, but we got to get you up in there and get a couple of the other ones out, and that'll start to change here in Virginia Beach.
More on that later. Mr. Dominique, I do see you're still on the feed. If you could hop on the video.
I was saying that the other day when I said I put it in tomorrow. I was like,
Hello?
All right, I see you're on. And question right now.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I I want to ask what, and he fell off the feed entirely. Hopefully he hops back on. But Mr. Randall, what would you like to see even the governor type politicians do literally with laws to help the community out past an election season?
Well, you know, again, it goes back to what I said about responsibility. First of all, to my people, my beautiful Black brothers and sisters that would watch this and hear this, I need you to hear me loud and clear. Stop letting these Democrats, especially the Black people, bamboozle you into making you feel obligated. Stop letting them make you feel like only the Republicans are the devils. Because some of the worst thing that has happened to our people came from our people. Prime example, these politicians passed a law that your rights could be restored, and we fell for the okie-doke. And I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. I've helped sign people up. But what are you getting? What are you getting? Because the reality is these folk did this just so that you could vote them in office. Don't fool yourself. That's all you getting. Your rights restored, and now you can go vote for them. Why do we keep electing people without any tangible demands? What are they doing? I just got appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission in my city. And like I told them, I'm not there to play no game. I got enough resume building things on my resume. I'm not here to build or pad my resume. Why is it that we just got a park in the city of Portsmouth with a basketball court, a slide, and an octagon thing, and they swear it costs $500,000? Ain't no way. It didn't cost $500,000. That money went into the pockets of businessmen and women that have profited off of the backs of Black people for years, for decades, centuries. And then we had these Black leaders in office that know this, and they get paid themselves, and that's why they mellowed out. Stop giving people your vote that you only see during election season. Stop giving people your vote that you can't even get their cell phone number. Stop giving people your vote that will not come and help you find your son or your daughter that ain't came in the house after 10, 11 o'clock at night. These people work for us. Don't get it twisted. These people work for us. We pay their salaries. We put them in office. We hire them. When a politician is asking for your vote, they're asking you to hire them. So why do you continue how you wouldn't have nobody working in your convenience store? And I use that as an example because I own a convenience store. You wouldn't have nobody working in your convenience store that's not doing their job. So why would you hire somebody that's not doing their job, that's not bringing something to the table that bring peace of mind to your community? And again, I cannot stress it enough. I don't care that they Democrats. Stop falling for that okie-doke because they keep trying to make you feel like they're your only hope. They're your only choice. God told me a year ago, because there's not a politician in Portsmouth that I'm not connected to in some shape, form, or fashion. There's not a politician in the city of Portsmouth all the way up to our highest ranking politician, Senator L. Louise Lucas, who's from the city of Portsmouth. And God told me straight up, he said, Barry Randall, they feeding you, they taking care of you, so you will never be able to look them in the face and call them out on their mess. And I had to repent as a man because every source of income that I had was tied to all of these people. And instantly, it was a miracle. When I repented, the Lord allowed me to open up a home health care agency, open up a convenience store, in the process of flipping a house, got into investments. I'm saying this not to brag. I'm telling y'all, if we do things God's way, God will take care of us, because God said you cannot allow them to feed you and you hold them accountable, because it's not going to happen, because you're going to need them. And I'm human like everybody else. And as long as people are feeding us, then we're going to kind of ease up. So we got to stop hiring these politicians that get in these offices and they take the handouts from these developers and they forget where they came from. Hold these people responsible. Hold your vote hostage. Stop letting these people make you feel guilty for not voting for them. Ask them, what have they done for you? What have they done for their community? Ask them, do their children go to public schools or do they go to private schools? Find out what's going on in their household, because if their struggle ain't your struggle, they'll never be able to have empathy or sympathy for what you and I go through as a people.
There you go.
Some good words. I want to give that question to you, Dominique, too. I'm glad you're able to catch on here from a nice inside the house situation here. What would you like to see Richmond do from the state down to help out our local communities?
First and foremost, I feel like what everybody this is a principle that everybody should want, is to give money to the local activists and people that actually have programs going on that can put the communities in a better situation. But I want to touch bases on the political and politicians that the Brother Barry was speaking on. And I feel like, far as organization, a CEO of an organization, I have been approached a lot of times with campaigns and different type of politicians to donate the organization money just to allow them to speak, because I provide a platform. So people also have to be cautious of that too, as well, because some of us as leaders are put in situations where we put a lot of our people in contact with a representative that may be running for office.
Now let's get ready for the last question of the evening. Let's start with Mr. Clayton. And lastly, tell the viewers about your organization itself and how they're looking to help the community move past violence.
Well, the name of my organization is Stop the Violence, Guns Down. And what we do is we just go out in the community, go door to door, talk to the community, get to know the people in the community itself, get to know the neighbors, get to know the children. And we try to talk to them about gun violence. We try to talk to them about bullying and try to get them to stay in school and try to graduate and try not to get in trouble themselves. And we just try to just mimic that system all the way around. When a child or someone loses their life to gun violence, we try to help them out with funeral expenses. We try to go to the funeral and speak and talk to the other children that may be thinking about revenge. You know, because me, myself, knowing that when you come up and you lose a friend to violence, you always feel, within your own self that you got to try to get some get back. That if you don't try to avenge this person's death, that the family look at you a certain way, you feel a certain way, and kind of feel like a punk, so to speak. And I want to let them understand and know that that's not the case. That, by you going out there trying to avenge this, that you can wind up yourself in prison or wind up getting killed, because sometimes it don't always turn out the way that you think it's going to turn out. And just try to help the people be a better person, and just to try to help out and do as much as we can out in the community. We know that since the school is out and so forth like that, and a lot of children are missing a lot of food and lunches and so forth, so we try to go out there and do little feedings and so forth like that, and just try to stay community based. And that's just basically what we all about, just all about the community. And just try to, talk to them about staying out of prison, just try to better themselves, because it's easy, try to be a leader and not a follower. Somebody try to give you some bad advice and tell you something negative that's not right. Look at that person and just think to yourself, why are they telling you to do this? You know what I mean? Just try to think for yourself sometimes. There's no certain age on knowledge. You could be, I learned from an 8-year-old kid, and I'm 40 plus. So you can learn from anybody, but just try to use your own mind and don't let somebody lead you to the slaughterhouse.
Pastor T, I would like you to give the viewers one good, strong reason why we should look to your organization and to how it's looking to move past violence in the community.
Like I said earlier, I'm the founder and pastor of Out of the Box Ministries. And what Out of the Box simply means, when God gave me that vision, was to be outside of the four walls of the church, to take the gospel to the streets, take the gospel to the people where it's needed. So a lot of time, the first thing people ask is, where's your church? And I tell them, I'm the church. And so wherever I go, that's what the church is. Whenever I go to Walmart, if I go to the laundromat, if I go to a clothing store, wherever I go to the park, I take the gospel with us. And Jesus commissioned us to go into all of the world and make disciples. And that's what I do. You would see me out at the mall somewhere talking to some young brothers and sisters and asking them, do they have a personal relationship with Christ? And I teach them it's as simple as ABC. A, admit that you're a sinner. We're all sinners. B, believe that God sent his son Jesus to save us from our sins. And C, Romans 10:9 says, if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord, you shall be saved. Doesn't take any falling out, doesn't take any backflips or anything like that. We're out to get people saved. We're concerned about your souls. Of course, we want you to come into the four walls of the church also, but our main goal is to take the gospel of Jesus Christ outside of the four walls of the church, take the gospel to the streets. We call ourselves the smallest mega church in Virginia because we do big things. We do the things that the mega churches won't do. We do some of the things that we go down and we feed the homeless. We clothe them. You know, we do all the little things, and instead of worrying about having all these revivals and different pastors coming in and preach for you. No, take the message, take the word of God, the gospel to the people, to the streets, to those who need it, the love and respect and joy and happiness of God and Jesus Christ, his son.
I want to move on here to Mr. Dominique Vaughan and tell us a little bit more as we close out here, your organization, its goals, and how it's looking to move past violence in the greater area.
First and foremost, the organization, we have a big event coming up September the 5th, and what's going to be showcases there is gun violence and prevention. And what we do, we have a few teenagers that are having disputes, and they're having their disputes with our segment we call conflict resolutions. And so basically they're rather to just meet confrontational with boxing gloves on and leave it at that, you know, and sign a contract, and that's how we moving forth. So that's the biggest platform that I have right now. As far as with community engagement, we do have a platform, so we do provide therapy through an outpatient and everything. So that's just the basics. If anybody want to find out more, they can contact us on our social media. You know, Gloves Up, Guns Down. My Facebook page, Dominique Vaughan, or Instagram. You know, that's about it.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to close out with the People's Pastor out in Portsmouth. How are you and your organizations looking to move past violence?
I'm sorry, I was muted. We're going to continue to educate. We're going to continue to share, as we always do, provide platforms. Actually, it's just so ironic that what you asking me the other day, I've never been in a long time been able to take something so quickly. So I believe that this was God ordained. I have a very low attention span. So this has excited me, and I'm looking forward to gleaning and learning more from my brothers. I've heard of some of them. I've watched them from a distance, but it just feels so good to be able to meet, and I believe that everything has divine timing. I will be so kind if you guys would please inbox in the group your contact information. Would love to link up with you guys. It's time for us to move out of our comfort zones. I've been doing a lot in Portsmouth, but it is now time for us to link up and do some regional things and come together on a regional level because we have the same issues. We're going through some of the same struggles, some of the same turmoil and what have you. So I'm very, very interested in working with you guys and just to help people, because at the end of the day, I believe that's how we live longer in the earth. I don't care what your background is, what your sin nature is. I just believe that if God have need of us and we make ourselves available, I believe that kind of prolongs our life. And I'm very committed through my church, All People Cultural Life Church, also Community Advocacy Social Justice Network that I founded 2 years ago. We do a lot of things through that. I have an event coming up on September the 6th, which is actually on Labor Day from 12 noon to 6 p.m. It's called the People People's Day, and we're going to have various vendors and information booths out there. We have a kickball game with the sheriff department here in the city of Portsmouth. But I really want to do something with you guys on a regional level, because there's some tactics that I've heard you guys speak of that I would love to implement here in Portsmouth. And there may be some things that I'm doing that you guys may want to implement in your neck of the woods. But at the end of the day, we all have the same issues that we're facing. So I'm just willing to link up with my brothers and see what we can do to bring this. And until they glue my tongue to the roof of my mouth and put the tag on my toe, I will continue to share the good news and let my brothers and sisters know who they are. I believe that the word of God says, if this gospel be hid, it is hid to them which are lost, for the God of this world has blinded their eyes, preventing the light of the gospel from shining in. And I just believe that if we remind people and let people know who they are, and always speak life to people and let them know that, because you're not going to scare this generation about hell. I'm going to tell you, when I came up, oh my God, you told me about hell, I was nervous. I wanted to stop what I was doing. But these brothers today, they living in hell every day. So talking about hell ain't good enough. It's time for people to show the love of God and tell them about the love that Jesus died for them, that he gave for them. Tell them about the love about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Tell them about the love of so many others that have come in through these generations, and let's just come together as a people. Thank you guys for having me. I pray that I was able to share something to enlighten the minds of the people. My brother over there in Norfolk, my brother in Virginia Beach, you guys are doing amazing things. My brother in Chesapeake, that was amazing what you guys did last year. And always remember, when you're doing something good, the enemy got to show his head. So I know during that particular time after the shooting, everybody was down like, oh man, we was doing something positive. But let me tell you something, you ain't doing nothing positive unless the devil get mad. So we got to continue doing what we're doing. Let's continue to lock hands. We're not always going to agree. I don't always say do everything right, but I solicit your prayers, and I would love to work with you guys and learn from you guys and grow with you guys and help us make some better guys. We have to duplicate ourselves. We have to make better copies of who we are, and we can only do that if we show people the love of God. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. I personally, Conrad Shesford, want to thank each of you guys individually, Mr. Dominique, Pastor Randall, Pastor T, Mr. Clay Marquez. Thank you personally for coming on the show tonight to address this. I also want to thank you for coming on this collaboration of the Beach Brothers Show and the HRBC, because we are looking to grow in many different ways to help out the community around us. So thank you very much for that. As a great HRBC member and Battle Cat leader, Andrea Dixon just commented, if you're interested in more information about community action and upcoming HRBC events, contact Community Action Team, HRBC, at gmail.com. We're going to bring it all together to make sure that we can definitely succeed and move past all this in 2021 and beyond. So I also want to close out tonight. Again, thank you guys for coming on. We are going to close out with thank you so much. Can't wait to see you guys the next time. And I'm going to close out the show by doing our usual tail end credits for the Beach Brothers Show. Let's start off with Mr. Jose Cruz's.
It's never too early or too late to plan for retirement. Let me show you how to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your assets from loss due to catastrophic decisions that may affect you the rest of your life. Please call me.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes, we do tax resolution, we lend private money, and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.